morning and welcome.
Good morning.
Morning. On this lovely day. I'm the Reverend Natalie Fenimore. I serve this congregation as minister along with the Reverend Ned White, who is away, and the Reverend Jennifer Brower, who is on sabbatical. Jennifer will be with us again in the next year, in February of 2018. As you know, we are a very busy congregation with many, many things happening, and if you look in the insert in your order of service, you'll have an opportunity to see some of them laid out before you as a banquet for you to choose from. I want to lift up some things that are happening because next week is homecoming. Big. So much begins anew. It's an opportunity for us to gather again, refreshed and renewed from our many adventures out in the world over the summer, and an opportunity for us to bring those things here to enrich our community further, to point out the ways in which we've grown and learned, and to share that with one another. One way we share it with one another is to have a picnic. So please come ready to eat and play and run on the lawn. You are not allowed to jump into the fountain. I have to tell the adults this because the kids already know. Also, we'll begin our jazz ensemble rehearsal, our young people's choir rehearsal, and our religious education classes next Sunday. All the RE families are going to gather together with us all at 11 o'clock for worship, and then the children will be leaving and a part in the service and going down to their classrooms, which are down that hallway. If you've never been to the RE hallway, I hope you will take an opportunity this year to go and visit them. It's a really lovely space. There are 19 rooms. There's a small chapel for worship. There are 3 playgrounds, so you can find the one that's best for you. If there's anyone here who has small children who have not registered for religious education, please do so. It's important for us to have updated information about our children when they're here in our care. There are a few other things that are happening this week I'd like you to be aware of. On September 10th, our friends in the Reconstructionist Synagogue, which is located at the former location of this congregation in Port Washington, they are supporting an interaction between Muslim and Jewish neighbors, having a program there at 4 p.m. on the 10th. On September 11th, as is the custom in this community, which experienced great loss on that day when the World Trade Center was attacked, there's a community memorial service in the Manhasset Town Square, sponsored by the Manhasset Clergy Association. There is also here at Shelter Rock 2 events that day. The rehearsal for the cabaret begins. The cabaret is our great, wonderful, terrific, outstanding musical production featuring the many multi-talented people we have in this congregation. There are lots of rehearsals, but they're all fun, so if you haven't signed up yet, please see Richard Bach. Would you stand, Richard? Yes. Richard is our guy in charge of this and many things. But see him if you'd like to be in cabaret. It's a lot of fun. Also, the Interfaith Nutrition Network is having a fundraiser honoring our own UUCSR members, Lauren First and Peter Coos, on the 11th at Ben's Deli. And Peter and Lauren are also here. Could you raise your hand? Yay. And we congratulate them for all their great work with the Interfaith Nutrition Network. They have been steady supporters doing the good work of caring for those in need in our community, and we most appreciate it. So, well honored. Thank you. Now, I want to welcome here today our guest minister, the Reverend Virginia Luke. Yes, Virginia is I'm really uncomfortable with that. I know her as Ginger. So, Ginger Luke is the Minister Emerita at the River Road Unitarian Universalist congregation in Bethesda, Maryland, outside of Washington, D.C. Ginger is a well-known writer and speaker in Unitarian Universalism, and today she'll be speaking to us about humanism, which is part of the theological history of our congregation, which was also founded by people very much interested in humanism, in the work of human beings in making the world a better place. And so, as is our custom, I now invite you to greet your neighbor. Always hate to ring that bell and stop you. You seem to be having so much fun. I will open our service with these words from Patrick Murphin. We gather as leaders, as servants. We gather as ears, as voices. We gather as memory, as hope. We gather as family, as pilgrims. We gather as faithful, as skeptics. We gather as objects, as subjects. We gather as wisdom, as folly. We gather as action, as reflection. We gather as many, as one. We are we. We shall be, as we serve, so shall we lead. I now invite Betty and John Tilton forward to light our chalice today. Betty and John are with us from Florida, and we are glad to have them here. Yes. We light our chalice. We gather. This hour is people of faith with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. The words of the Reverend Christine Robinson. Please rise in body or spirit as you're willing or able to sing our opening hymn in the great hymnal number 346, Come Sing a Song with Me.
Sing
for our words of affirmation, which are written in the order of service. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge of freedom, to serve human need. This is to affirm and covenant with each other. Thank you so much, Lindsay and Nathaniel. We will now take an offering. We will receive this offering for the life and work of this our congregation. Please know that in these times, so much of the resources of this congregation will be marshaled to support those who are in need, those who will be suffering from the effects of hurricanes for a long, long time. As has been our experience in supporting Unitarian Universalist congregations in New Orleans, this will be long-haul work, and we must come together and be committed to supporting those in need for this long time. So I would invite you to give as you are able. Will the ushers please come forward?
These are words from Reverend John Dietrich, who was the minister in Minneapolis in 1916 when he wrote these words. If we live in a great impersonal universe, it matters tremendously how we conduct ourselves, for we are actually the makers of human destiny. We are not simply individuals who have a beginning in life and an ending. We are links in the endless chain of life. To us has been committed all that life has won from chaos in all the ages past. Only through us can that trust from the past be transmitted to the future. And he went on, our chief business, therefore, is to put beauty in the place of ugliness, good in the place of evil, laughter in the place of tears, to dispel error with knowledge, hatred with love, displace strife and contention with peace and cooperation. And somehow within us is a voice which urgently calls us to these tasks. It is the life urge. It is the aspiration after better things. It is human at its best and bravest. It is what many may call divine. Some even call it God. In any case, it is religion. In the spirit of this reading, we invite those who would like to light a candle for joys or sorrows to do so now. in this sacred place of quiet, easy breathing, with just a bit of breeze outside our walls, let us hold that calm for just a moment. Breathe deeply. And as we let the air out of our lungs, may our breath carry love and carry to the people who have just experienced Hurricane Harvey, and to those who at this very moment being frightened and possibly hurt by Hurricane Irma, and to those recovering from the Mexican earthquake. Let us carry love and caring to all of those. And as we hold them in our hearts and minds, may they know that they are not alone, that people throughout the world are holding them in their prayers and in their hearts and minds. May they be reassured that help is on the way, and reassured that the human spirit is strong, resilient, and caring. Let us pause for a moment of silence. May we commit ourselves to remembering those of the hurricanes and the earthquake for tomorrow and the tomorrows after tomorrow. And knowing that there are so many more who are living through little hurricanes and earthquakes of other dimensions in their lives, for whom we also pray for safety and love. May the winds die down, the rains cease, the waters calm, the earth again hold firm, and may the sun come out for all, followed by people carrying drinking water, food, and supplies to begin the rebuilding. And may all know you are not alone. You are not alone. Amen.
There are places I'll
Thank you. On July 6th of this year, a dear friend and mentor of mine, Reverend Bill Murray, died. He had just recently received the Unitarian Universalist Human Association Lifetime Achievement Award for extraordinary contributions to religious humanism and Unitarian Universalism. I had worked with him when I was the minister at River Road Unitarian Church in Bethesda, Maryland, when he was. And he was instrumental in getting me into Meadville Lombard Theological School and was the president of the school when I graduated from there. He asked me to contribute an essay to the book he co-edited, Humanist Voices in Unitarian Universalism. And while working on the words for his memorial service, I did a lot of reflecting about the evolution of religious humanism within Unitarian Universalism during his lifetime. Humanism had been reflecting the struggles of making sense out of 2 world wars during which many were asking, where was God? And many were taken back by the capacity for evil and destruction within the hands of human beings. He knew the religion of John Dietrich, the person I just read the reading from, and Curtis Rios of the early 1900s, which was thought of in Reverend Bill Schultz's words as a strictly human-centered, scientifically minded, ethically focused religion. Bill also knew of the humanist-theist controversy, which carried on within Unitarian Universalism until around 1933, when the Humanist Manifesto emerged, which was signed by several very prominent Unitarian ministers, though some think that controversy is still going on. It does seem to me that the theistic tradition was stronger in many New England churches than in those in the Midwest and the West. Perhaps that has something to do with when they were established. The local history of churches often shapes them into their present life. Likewise, I think it's true of churches, if they were originally Universalist, they're different today than those Unitarian Universalist churches who were originally Unitarian. But back to that evolution of the humanism with Bill Murray's experiences, I realized that the evolution of humanism that I have experienced in my lifetime coincided with Bill's timeline. We came into religious humanism within Unitarian Universalism about the same time, during the last third of the 20th century. He also knew that in 1998, 46% of Unitarian Universalists reported they regarded themselves as theologically humanist. And just a couple of years ago, Bill gave a sermon in which he said, in 1981, when I first came to River Road, and that was about a decade before I had met him, that he first heard Unitarian Universalists really talking about spiritual qualities of our lives, about living at a deeper level, living with purpose and gratitude. Well, the Unitarian Universalist women's movement had brought me into that great conversation and experience involving spirituality and Unitarian Universalism at least a decade earlier than Bill heard those words. Much of the religious communities within the United States during that time was naming and exploring spirituality, mainstream religions across the country. More spirituality was a kind of in vogue cry throughout the nation. But Bill's attention may have been directed at those language struggles for which the humanists were getting a reputation. They were adamant in maintaining their integrity by expressing discomfort about the words, the use of words from their childhood and their culture. Words like God, sanctuary, chancel, worship, prayer, covenant, preludes, postludes, offertories, sacred, grace, or holy. Oh, and yes, of course, spirituality. They wondered if they could participate in a religious ceremony. But despite the fact that the root of religion was to bind together, couldn't we call Unitarianism a philosophy rather than a religion? Now, this is no joke because I'm married to a man who really would still today prefer to talk about philosophy rather than religion. But what did it mean to light a candle, let alone a chalice? And how could talking about goddess be any better than talking about God? And then I remember Reverend Forrest Church saying, well, tell me about that God you don't believe in. I probably don't believe in that God either. But it took, I think, Reverend Bill Sinkford, when he was president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, who in 2003 called Unitarian Universalists to a language of reverence. In that conversation, he recognized that, quote, the reality is that in the broad definition, every Unitarian Universalist is a humanist. We know there are no other hands on earth but ours. And for this, he expressed a great gratitude to our humanist background. And he went on and he said, we know from all our work as a faith community on oppression of various kinds about the dangers of thinking in categories. The great virtue and value of our faith, he said, is its ability to live as a religious, pluralistic faith, where our religious differences are seen as blessings rather than curses. And he continued to ask, can we name the holy? Can we speak of that which transcends our ego and which calls us to the making of justice? Can we speak about God? Can we engage with the Judeo-Christian tradition? Well, all of this seemed to fit pretty well with my experience. By then and to this date, I call myself a mystical humanist. I grew up with a Judeo-Christian tradition, so all those stories are part of me. My interpretation of them has evolved over the years, but they're still there. I'm reminded of an experience I had when I was supporting a UU campus ministry program at the University of Nebraska. The group which met at the Student Union was a student-planned and driven gathering with lively discussions, coffee, and fun. And we had a Lutheran graduate student that joined us, and I always thought he came because he wanted to convert us. But one day he came up to me after our session. He said, I think I understand you all. You don't do things or not do things because God told you to do them or not do them. You do them because you think they're right or should be done. And I smiled and I said, "You've got it. I do not kill people because God told me not to kill people. I don't kill people because I want to live in a world where people aren't killing. And I care for people, not because God told me to care for people, but because I want to live in a world where people are caring." Bill Murray wrote about naturalism and humanism. And I grew up close to the land, walking through the prairie, canoeing down the Niobrara River, and planting and harvesting gardens of peas and radishes and strawberries and green beans and wax beans and carrots and tomatoes and potatoes. And all of that shaped the fact that I always knew I was a part of the natural world. The natural world was filled with mystery, but mystery of which I was a part. You couldn't walk out of it because you were in it and it in you. There was a great power for creation and destruction in the world I grew up in, but the power wasn't conscious, planned, or manipulating. The power invited exploration and discovery. It elicited awe as well as caution. And I was a part of it because I was a human being, and everyone else was a part of it too. And in that amazing sense of place, I experienced love. It was the ethical basis of the life of the people in my family. I was unconditionally loved. You know, our human hardwired trait for always reaching out to help someone if they trip or fall or slip, well, that's the world I grew up in. If you slipped, somebody did help you. If something was heavy, somebody picked up the other end and helped you carry it. We were part of the natural world, and we respected the world and the value with each other. And if it weren't so, as I looked out at the world, I knew it was because people were oblivious to their harmfulness, or hurt, or afraid. The love I experienced was created, given, and received by people. It shaped how I cared about people, helped them, yearned to learn more about those I had never known, and thought about those who came before me and would come after me. The world was in process, and our job was to participate the best way we could. You know, I had 12 years of perfect attendance in my Presbyterian Sunday school. I had a little pin with little bars for every year that I could wear down. My mother was the choir director. And I believed God was love. And I have always thought that if only people would have just stopped right there, God is love. Not a person, not a king or a ruler, but the emotion or essence that holds all of us together, I might still call myself a theist. I feel that the strongest power in this world is love. It brings me both great joy, and when it is absent or distorted, great pain. Love is what encourages creativity, empathy, beauty, peace, a sense of belonging and comfort. And when the natural world is cruel or vicious, like Hurricane Harvey or Irma, it is love, human love, that holds and comforts us and gives us solid ground on which to stand. How many of you have emailed, texted, or even called a friend or a relative in the path of one of the hurricanes? How many? Just raise your hand. Yeah, look at it. It's quite amazing. And have you seen that outpouring of love from all around the world to the people of these hurricanes? When my daughter died at 34, it was an outpouring of love from my friends and my UU community that held me and reassured me that there was still love in this world. And when human cruelty or violence causes pain and death, I look to human love. I often find this love within my Unitarian Universalist community in opportunities to stand on the side of love, to speak out for immigration reform, to march for racial justice and women's rights. Bill Murray would say, it is not so much what you believe, but how you live your life that matters. I once heard a story of a Unitarian Universalist minister asking a couple of medical students whom he was marrying, what is at the core of your being? And both of them responded together. They had actually talked about it. And they said, when we look through a microscope at a single living cell and watch it pulse, we are in awe of the presence of life. When I look at a sleeping baby, or the wrinkled arthritic hands of my 93-year-old mother, or when I hear Maya Angelou say, "Good morning," at the end of the Clinton inaugural poem, or when my 12-year-old grandson gives me a hug, even at 12, and says, "I love you, Grammy," I am stopped in my tracks at the wonder of life, the miracle, the science of cells and bodies, the unlikelihood that all of this could come together and create life itself causes me to pause with great awe. And I am thankful. The medieval mystic Meister Eckhart was right when he said, if the only prayer you ever say in your entire life is thank you, it is enough. In his book, Making the Manifesto, The Birth of Religious Humanism, Reverend Bill Schultz said it like this: what is of supreme importance is that I live my life in a posture of gratitude, that I recognize my existence and indeed being itself as an unaccountable blessing, a gift of grace. Sometimes it is helpful to call the source or fact of that grace God, and sometimes not. But what is always helpful and absolutely necessary is to look kindly on the world, to be bold in pursuit of its repair, and to be comfortable in the embrace of its splendor. I know no better term for what I seek, he says, than the encounter with the holy. Being a humanist calls me to my better self. It holds me in blessed community during the good times and the bad times, and allows me to continually search for more meaning and understanding in both the world of science and art. Being a humanist is a religious act for me, a religious act both embraced by and holding love. Humanism is not a dying tradition. I find many people in their 30s and 40s and even younger embracing the humanism with a heart that I know. Shelter Rock's own new campaign with posters in the trains calls forth human kind. What is that but humanism with a heart? A heart that recognizes no language test for awe or wonder or love. May Shelter Rock always be the heart and hands of humankind, human dignity, human rights, human compassion, human acceptance. Yes, indeed, humankind. Amen. And now I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn number 128. For all that is our life. In your name, may the people of the earth be blessed, and may the way you live your lives always speak for you. Blessings to you all. Go in peace.